Greetings YouTube, and welcome to my next weapons build. Now, not long ago I made a wasteland version of a Hussite flail. It had a 6-foot shaft, had about a 12-inch striking head that had been made out of, I made it out of one of the front fork tubes from a motorcycle. This nice chrome shiny metal. And I know I wanted to come up with some other designs. Now my friend Skull made one in a very traditional way. He used a tree limb, and then he strapped it with metal strips and then bolted them on, and then made that his striking. And I think it was about 12 inches long, I'm not positive. And the striking head that I used from the fork tube, I think was about a foot long as well. So I decided I wanted to do something that looked more like bands going around a piece of wood. But I don't have the ability to turn wood. I don't have a lathe. I don't have access to someone that does. So I can't say, hey, I need a piece of tube, a piece of cylindrical wood X diameter. Can you make that for me? So I have to work with what I got. And what I can get my hands on is this kind of material here. This is pressure treated lumber. It is a baluster rail for a set of stairs. Now, this fits my bill because it's just slightly too big for this piece of tubing here, which is a small diameter lally column. I have no idea what it was for. I picked it up by the road, and I don't have any clue what it was for because it was never filled with cement. They usually put cement in lally columns, so I don't know what this is used for. And there was a couple of holes in it already. I used one of those already. I'm not going to be using the other one yet. The other one's right there. It's going to stay right where it is. But my idea here was is to cut 3 rings. I'll have to square off this end, then cut 3 rings, each 1.5 inches long, and find the center, and then drill a through hole through it. One through hole. I'll be using those fasteners there. They are currently too long because I couldn't remember what size this thing was, so I bought overly long bolts. You know, the price difference between that and the shorter one, the exact size was minuscule. Since I couldn't remember how the diameter was, I can always make those shorter. That's real easy to achieve. And I will be attaching the wood to the chain here. I'll be using 5 links of that. 1 link will be inside the tube and the other 4 will be outside the tube. With this, one of these, obviously I'm going to have to bend this, which may be a bit of a bear. That's pretty thick steel. But bend it wide enough, just wide enough, so I can slip one of those links in and then bend it back. And I picked these up for 50 cents at a yard sale. So I'm going to cut 3 rings, drill a hole through the center of each, which is going to be challenging because I want to cut them first, because working with this lally column as it is in my drill press will be very cumbersome. And I can't guarantee the holes will be in the middle if I drill them first and then cut it after. I'm not that accurate. So I want to cut them first and then drill them. And I can't drill them all the way through because I don't have anything that'll cut through this kind of steel that efficiently. Drill bits are a bit of an issue. I'll explain that in a second. I'll be using this style of broaching bit. This is a 5/16. I'm using 1/4 inch bolts, so that gives me a little bit of wiggle room. And I'll be using this spring tool here as a marking device for the holes when I figure out where I want to put them. And then I'll put them one here, and one here. I'm going to have to sand this down a bit, not a whole lot, but just a bit. Actually, I may have to make it a little bit longer. Yeah, make it 10 inches so I have some place for the bloody threads to go. So yeah, I may have to make a 10-inch head. And then just have an inch of wood sticking out the bottom, because I need some place for those threads to go. If I put that right here, those threads will impact the center. They'll impact the bolt, the through bolt. So yes, I'm going to have to make that here, and that'll give me a place to go. And then yeah, okay, make it 10 inches long. That's the key. Make it 10 inches long, and then put the bolts through and then hold the whole thing together so I can make this as tight as I can get it. I'm going to have to deburr the outside, which is really easy to do, and then deburr the inside. And I have some grinding stones designed specifically for that. I'm just going to stick them in my drill bit, in my hand drill, and make it easier, and deburr the inside so I can make this as smooth as possible so I can get them as snug on this as conceivable. So I want to sand down just a little bit, test it, do each side just a little bit and test it till I get it nice and snug, and then I will tap them down so that they're in place and they're not moving when I'm done. So that's the goal. And then I think that's all the components of this job today. Fasteners, chain, which obviously I have to cut, it's still connected, my broaching bit, and I'm going to have to do some little bit of two-stepping fancy work on my drill press, because I'm going to be setting up my V-block here, but I need to clamp down a ring. And clamping a ring is going to be a bit of a challenge. I think I've figured out how I can do it safely, so I don't get hurt and so the piece doesn't fly everywhere. But that may be a bit of a challenge. I think I figured it out. We're going to give it a try once I have the V-block in place. Now, the reason I have some difficulty working with this drill press. I love my drill press, I really do. But this is a 1/2 horsepower, and it is not variable speed. Now, it's variable speed in the sense that it's got a belt in here and different pulley sizes. So I can change the speed by moving the belt from one set of pulleys to the other, and then that increases or decreases the speed. But it's not convenient, and it's not fast, and it doesn't give me instantaneous feedback control. And it doesn't go as slow as I want to, and it's only a 1/2 horsepower. What I really need is a mill. I don't have a mill. I'm probably not going to have one for a fairly long time. I don't know if I will ever have a mill. But if I had a floor model drill press that had like a 1 horsepower motor, that would be much better. Particularly if it had a dial where I could really tune the speed to my desire, because using a hand drill is sometimes a lot easier on this. And the reason I'm going to have to use my broaching bit on both sides is that if I drill through one side, which will be probably pretty simple, I believe this stuff is not that hard, is that when I put a drill bit through, it's not possible for me to line up and get an exact through bit. I'm likely to go off at an angle, and I want this to be centered all the way through. So I'm going to probably have to mark it on both sides and then use the broaching bit. If I had a bigger motor, I would be able to drill all the way through the thing, and then this would not be an issue. But I don't have that power at the moment. And my hand drill is nice because even though it isn't much more powerful, I think it's a 1/2 horsepower, less than a 1/2 horsepower motor, but I can feather the control on the hand drill far more accurately. Not to mention I can put more pressure on the hand drill because I can put my body weight behind it when I'm drilling something in my vise. And because I can really tune the speed very slow or very high instantaneously by how I pull on the trigger, it helps to get the drill bit to bite. And once you get a bite, then you're golden. But when I'm doing this thing here, this 1/2 horsepower motor just doesn't have what it takes. And a lot of the times I'm even using the broaching bit, if I push too hard, it'll stall out on me. And that's not what you want. So I'm going to end up having to drill this in more steps, because 2 steps for each hole, as opposed to if I had a mill, I could just go right through it in one go, and I'd be done. And I could do that by having the right kind of motor and the right kind of setup, and the vise to hold it this way, which I don't really have at the moment. So that's the problem I have at the moment. So first thing I need to do is square this off and then cut 3 rings as close to exactly 1.5 inches as possible. That's my goal. So I'm going to square it, mark it, cut one, then mark the next one and cut. I'm not going to do it all at once because sometimes the kerf of the blade, the material the blade cuts off, will screw up your measurements. And I don't have like an automatic machine to do this for me. This is all being done by hand. So one at a time, get those 3 rings done, deburr them, and then I can cut this piece of wood and start working on getting it the right size for these rings to slip over. So that is the next step. And here we go. These are the 3 rings. The ODs have already been done, and they are cool now. I had to dip them in water, and they were very hot when I was done cutting them. And you can see why I now need to work on the inside, because the inside is bloody nasty looking. And I need to get that smooth so that I can then get them onto that once I machine that, sand that down just a smidge. It doesn't have to be sanded down much. And as I predicted, they're not exactly the same. These two are closer than this one is. And I knew that was going to happen. It's very difficult to get exact measurements on my chop saw because I'm doing this. I'm marking it, but I'm having to get it by eye. So it's not the best thing in the world, but I do what I can. So now I'm going to put them in my vise, and I'm going to get my drill out and a bit, and I'm going to start working on the ID and get that smooth, so that I can then start working on the wood to cut it and then start to sand it, so I can get things where I want it to be. There we go, all done, all deburred. That one I destroyed, that one I didn't do, that groove, but I did that groove. Then I turned over to this one, and that finished the job up. See, this is all set now, so now I need to cut the wood and start to fit it. And once I get it fit, then it's going to be, the next stage will be drilling these. And I'm hoping that the clamping idea I've come up with is going to work. I want to drill 2 holes on either side of this. So I want them to line up. So I've drawn this on standard notebook paper, roughly in the middle, line that up, and then I can use those to give me marks. Where are they? Here we go. There's one mark there, and then there's another mark on this side. Now I'm going to put them in my vise, and I'm going to mark a pencil mark. I'm going to draw that across with a square, and then find the center. So this is a step-by-step process, and once I'm done, I will have the centers, which I will then mark with my spring set, my spring point set, and then I will be done. So that's how I'm finding the middles, giving myself a template so I can find the centers of both of those. And again, I'm using 5/16 holes, so that little bit of extra wiggle room should work in my favor. And here's my solution for clamping a ring. I've got a piece of steel square stock and 2 squeeze clamps. These are Irwin quick clamps holding the ring in place. So I've got space for the bit to go through, not a lot of space, but enough space to get me through to the ring itself, and then have some place for the material to fall through. And this is centered and it's not going anywhere. So now I can actually drill the hole in the steel. It is a little tricky to get it exactly where I want it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I'm sure that as I'm going to be doing 6 of these, so by the time I hit number 6, I'll probably have it down to a science, which will hopefully be useful at some point in the future. I don't know if I'll ever do this again, but I hope this is a functioning solution. I'm about to find that out. Wish me luck. And here's the proof in the pudding. It's in the middle. Woohoo! My idea worked. Now, I just gotta do it 2 more times. Yay! Alrighty, so there we have the situation. I don't need a mark for this one, that's going to be flush. That one's going to line up with the edge there, and that one is going to be there. So I'm going to put in this one first from this end, that's a shorter distance, and then I'll put in that one, and then that one will go in last. And I'm going to... It's really rough how I want to do this. Because it would make sense for me to drill the holes first, but I don't know if I can get them to go through if I do that. So what I may do is put the pieces in and then drill the holes, and if I'm wrong, I can always cut on a new piece and make a new piece. This is the easy thing to replace. These are harder. They're done. I'm finished with those pieces. Alright, and I also want to get them so that 2 of the bolts go this way and 1 goes that way, just for visual appeal, just to have something look different. Alrighty, so now it's going to be time to get that there. So here we have the head pretty much complete. I did drill the holes with these in place. Getting the bolts in was a little bit of finagling. I opened up this eye bolt with this old tool handle. I actually have no idea what this tool handle was for. It's nice, it's a well-built tool handle. I have no idea what it's from. I picked it up at an estate sale. But I used that to bend this sideways, which was very easy because this gave me plenty of leverage. And then I put this chain link in here. So now I need to drill a hole there, and we're done. The head will be finished, and then I'll mount it onto the shaft so I can go outside and get some pictures. So yeah, this has been a nice little project. This is nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. I don't know how well it would survive, impacts. I'm never going to actually hit it against any person, though I guess I could do a test against coconuts or something. But I can guarantee you it'll break a coconut. This would crush a human head without a problem. This thing is 9 inches long. It's got 3 heavy pieces of metal on here. Thankfully they're soft, so I was able to go through with the broaching bit pretty easy. Yeah, I can tell you, this is going to do some serious damage when swung with a 6-foot shaft. Yeah, there's no messing around with this one. Alrighty, so now I need to mark a hole. Put a mark in there with an awl so I can drill a hole and then put that in place. And then we're done, and it's time for pictures. So, thank you for being here. I hope that you were here for the next build, and if you want to, stop by my DeviantArt page, and you can look at the stills that I've got up there of this particular build. Thank you. Bye-bye.